Welcome once again to my office. Welcome to another word of the week, another weekly wow. Our word this week is the word gravity. Hope you'll let me be who I am. Think a little bit about my background, the things that I have enjoyed studying in times past. I was a math major. I love math, science, physics. Earlier this year, I started writing a little piece about gravity and prayer, thinking about spiritual applications to the physical principles of gravity. I want to add to that article, have a little fun, reflect who I am, and think about spiritual realities. In physics, the force that two objects exert each on the other, the attraction, is equal to Newton's gravitational constant, a number that is designated by the letter G. You can see it on the video. You can also read it in the notes. Not that it matters much. You take that gravitational constant, multiply it by the mass of the first object, multiply that by the mass of the second object, and divide by the square of the distance between the two objects. In simple terms, the attraction of two objects depends on their mass or their size and the distance between them. The larger the objects, the greater the attraction. The closer the objects are to one another, the greater the attraction. Truth that works in the physical realm. Simply apply the formula. But we go to the spiritual realm. Words for this life and words for the next life. Jesus said, if I'm lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. Here's a principle for centering our spiritual lives. Here is a truth that I like to describe as spiritual gravity. Jesus is describing an attraction. He's describing that which pulls us, draws us to God. Consider our spiritual lives. First, the greater the concept we have of God, the more we're going to be attracted to him. God's grandeur, God's splendor, God's majesty, God's greatness. And so we want to seek him. Second, the closer we walk with God, the closer we are to him spiritually, the greater the attraction. Spiritual gravity is strongest when we are nearest. So James encourages us to draw near to God so that he will draw near to us. Consider the ways in which we draw near to God. Consider the transforming power of a life centered by prayer, not centered on prayer, centered by prayer. Prayer puts God at the center. Prayer makes clear that God is the center around which all else revolves. He is the power, if you will, the gravity that keeps us from flying off in all directions. Shared prayer allows us to experience together the gravitational pull of God. Jesus lifted high, others drawn closer. I think of family, I think of friends, people around me. You are in my circle because we together are drawn by the spiritual gravitational pull that I'm describing. Prayer is not just for down at the church house. The entirety of our lives finds meaning and purpose in the truth of spiritual gravity, attracting us, holding us to God, to Jesus, to one another, all of our life, whether we're resting, working, serving, thinking about our possessions, our circumstances, our situations, our giftedness. Everything makes sense because of the gravitational spiritual pull that we find in Jesus Christ. And if staying close to God increases God's spiritual hold on us, and if prayer is a part of hooking up to God's gravitational pull in our lives, we must consider the challenge before us when we so often find it difficult to maintain a vibrant, exciting prayer life. So here's my application today. Our word gravity, spiritual gravity. If the centering power of prayer is foundational to the Christian life, as it was for Jesus in his life and in his ministry, why are we so often intimidated, uncertain, inconsistent in talking to God? Prayer is simply conversing with God, including God in our conversations, our shared conversations, one with another, specific groups, personal conversations. Conversation with God is not difficult. It is enjoyable, can be relaxed, constant. So this week, our word of the week, gravity. Not in the physical realm, you can read the formulas, but in the spiritual realm. To be aware of God's spiritual gravity and enjoy being pulled closer and closer to God. Appreciate his attracting power, his greatness, his splendor, his majesty, his glory. God is moving among us and within us and toward us, relating personally, relating powerfully in our lives. God's glory is weighty. The words are connected in their Old Testament origins. Gravity works even when we don't feel it, even when we don't think about it. I think the same thing is true spiritually. Gravity holds things together. God's gravity holds things together spiritually. Paul in Colossians 1 reflects that same truth as he describes Jesus as the one who holds everything together. Well, I pray that you'll have a week where everything holds together because of the spiritual gravity that you appreciate in your life. Remember that God loves you. I love you. That's the way it's going to be. I pray that you'll have a blessed week and that you'll find centering in your prayer time with God and that you'll find strength for the journey. God bless.